The scene opens with a familiar image, softened by warm daylight. A small red beetle with black polka dot markings wandering across the outstretched finger of a child. Its movement is unhurried, almost deliberate, as it tests the terrain with gentle tapping steps. The finger barely feels the weight. At this scale, the beetle is feather light, a traveler on a living landscape. For many people, this is one of the first insects ever handled, and the experience is usually harmless. Yet beneath that sweet imagery, the rounded wing covers, the playful colors, the delicate grip of tiny feet, lies an evolutionary strategy finely tuned by millions of years of trial, error, and survival. The ladybug's charm is part disguise, part defense, and entirely intentional. As the camera draws closer, the viewer sees more than color and shape. The dome-like shell protects delicate flight wings folded beneath it, but it also acts as a billboard, broadcasting a message few predators ignore. In nature, bright red paired with sharp spots is not decoration. It is a declaration. Many insects rely on camouflage to vanish into the background, but ladybugs take the opposite approach, announcing their presence with almost theatrical boldness. This strategy, aposematism, warns predators that an unpleasant experience awaits anyone who attempts a bite. However, warnings are only effective when backed by something meaningful, and the ladybug's arsenal, though simple, is surprisingly potent. The first line of defense becomes visible only when the beetle is disturbed. If the gentle human touch shifts into a squeeze or a bird lands too close, the ladybug changes demeanor. It lowers its body, tucks its legs, and enters a state of tense stillness. Then, from the joints of those delicate legs, tiny droplets of yellow fluid appear, slowly beading up like tears. This reaction, known as reflex bleeding, transforms the ladybug from a harmless speck into a living chemical warning sign. The droplets may seem insignificant, but each contains a complex mixture of alkaloids, bitter, defensive compounds produced within the insect's hemolymph. To predators, that taste is not just unpleasant, it is unforgettable. Alkaloids are among the most widespread natural defenses in the insect world, but the specific mixture found in ladybugs is particularly deterring to small vertebrates. Birds that pluck unfamiliar insects from foliage expect variability in flavor, yet the bitterness here is immediate, sharp, and prolonged. Lizards have been observed shaking their heads after biting into a ladybug, tongues flicking as they attempt to rid themselves of the lingering aftertaste. Even small mammals recoil, wiping their snouts against the ground in an effort to erase the irritation that spreads across their mucous membranes. In laboratory tests, the compounds demonstrate measurable physiological effects: increased salivation, mild burning sensations, and immediate aversion responses. The ladybug's bright red shell begins to make evolutionary sense. When your body tastes like a spoiled chemical experiment, it is wise to make yourself memorable. Still, there is a gentler side to this defensive story, and it emerges when the beetle interacts with humans. If pressed or trapped against the skin, a ladybug can deliver a small bite, more of a pinch than a true puncture. The mandibles are not designed for combat. They evolved to chew soft-bodied aphids, a central part of the ladybug diet, rather than to fend off attackers. When they nip, it is a behavioral last resort, a message delivered directly rather than chemically. The sensation is surprising but fleeting, a tiny spark of discomfort rather than a serious injury. Yet it carries an important ecological parallel. Even the most charming creatures use whatever tools evolution has provided, no matter how modest. The combination of a minor bite and a potent taste creates a unique level 1 experience in the natural world, the tutorial stage of predator education. Young birds, still exploring which insects can be eaten without consequence, often target small, brightly colored species out of curiosity. A first encounter with a ladybug offers a harmless but instructive lesson. The bite is not dangerous, the toxin not damaging, but the experience is unpleasant enough to leave a memory. Evolution favors animals that can learn quickly, and the ladybug becomes an early teacher in a long curriculum of selective feeding. It shows predators, gently but firmly, that color patterns matter, and that ignoring them can lead to discomfort. In this way, the ladybug occupies a surprisingly influential role in ecological learning. It is neither the most toxic nor the most aggressive of beetles, but it sets the foundation for a predator's pattern recognition. Through repeated interactions across seasons and generations, birds learn to associate specific color combinations with negative experiences. This knowledge shapes hunting behavior across landscapes, subtly altering which insects survive, which predators thrive, and how communities equilibrate over time. A ladybug's presence on a leaf is not just a charming sight. It is part of an evolutionary conversation spoken through taste, color, and memory. As the camera pans across a meadow, thousands of tiny moments like this unfold simultaneously. A sparrow hovers over a patch of clover, scanning for soft, digestible prey. Among the green leaves, a bright red ladybug stands out like a lantern. The sparrow considers it, recalling a bitter encounter from its early days. Instead of striking, the bird tilts its head, dismisses the insect, and moves on to safer targets. Pale caterpillars, small beetles with no warning colors, and soft larvae hidden beneath the foliage. The ladybug remains untouched, not because it is powerful in any physical sense, but because its evolutionary message has been successfully delivered. The documentary lens lingers on the beetle once more, highlighting its dual identity. To humans, it remains an emblem of good luck, a harmless visitor on windowsills and garden leaves. To predators, it is a bite they prefer not to repeat, a taste they would rather avoid, a lesson they have learned well. Even the chemical droplet that beads from its leg joints carries an ecological story, one that begins with a simple defensive reflex and extends into the behavior of entire food webs. The chapter closes as the ladybug opens its wing covers and rises into the air. From beneath the red shell, delicate wings unfurl and catch the breeze, lifting the beetle upward in a slow, controlled ascent. It drifts across the meadow, the vivid color shrinking into a moving speck. It is small, gentle, and deceptively cute, but also a master of subtle defense, perfectly adapted to teach its world the first rule of survival. Pay attention to the patterns, or the patterns will teach you. In early spring, when sunlight returns with a softer haze and the first warm days coax life back onto the ground, one of the most striking sights appears at the base of old trees, along sunlit walls, and across cracked sidewalks. Dozens, then hundreds, then what seems like entire colonies of red and black insects gather in dense, shifting clusters. Their bodies are flat, shield-shaped, and painted with patterns that resemble ancient warning symbols. Bold circles and triangles arranged across scarlet wings. These are firebugs, and their presence is impossible to ignore. Their colors do not blend into the environment. They blaze against it. The gathering itself feels ritualistic, as if the warmth of the day were a signal calling them out of hiding and into the open. The camera drifts closer, allowing the viewer to witness the intricate movement within a cluster. Firebugs crawl over one another, turning the mass into a constantly shifting mosaic of red and black. This congregation serves several purposes, though it appears chaotic at first glance. Firebugs are thermophilic, relying on the heat stored in dark surfaces and shared body contact to raise their internal temperatures after cold nights. The behavior resembles a living solar panel, each insect absorbing warmth and radiating it to its neighbors. In an evolutionary sense, their social sunbathing is an efficient cooperative strategy that increases early season activity and extends feeding opportunities long before other insects have fully emerged. Yet the visual spectacle of this clustering behavior carries another ecological message. Bright coloration in the natural world is rarely accidental. Firebugs, like ladybugs and certain caterpillars, rely on aposematism, a language of color that predator eyes learn quickly. Red warns of danger, and black enhances the contrast, ensuring the message is delivered even in dappled shade. The firebug's pattern is not merely decorative, it is backed by real chemical defenses capable of turning a curious predator's first taste into a lasting memory. When threatened or crushed, firebugs release defensive secretions from specialized glands. The compounds, expelled from the underside of the body or mixed into their hemolymph, contain a suite of foul-tasting molecules that can irritate the sensitive tissues of a predator's mouth. While the chemical composition varies slightly between species and developmental stages, the effect is unmistakable. Immediate bitterness, followed by a lingering burning sensation that spreads across the tongue and throat. To small birds, the taste is akin to licking an overripe, chemically treated plant. To reptiles, the reaction is more physical. The secretions can trigger mild inflammation, particularly in the delicate lining of the mouth and upper digestive tract. Predator interactions unfold with cinematic clarity. A young bird, newly fledged and inexperienced, hops along a sunlit sidewalk where a cluster of firebugs has gathered. Its instincts push it toward exploration. Bright colors attract attention, especially when movement accompanies them. The bird pecks once, snagging a single firebug between its beak tips. The insect compresses slightly, releasing its chemical defenses instantly. The bird shudders, opens its beak, and drops its prey, shaking its head vigorously as if attempting to expel the bitterness. Moments later, it drags its beak across the pavement, scraping its tongue in a futile effort to erase the taste. The lesson is fast, visceral, and unforgettable. This is the essence of the firebug's defensive strategy. Its bite is trivial, its physical strength negligible, and its speed modest at best. What it lacks in physical prowess, it compensates for through a powerful sensory deterrent. The goal is not to wound predators, but to train them. One taste is enough. The experience seldom escalates to serious harm, but the combination of bitterness, chemical burn, and mild mucosal irritation creates an aversion strong enough to shape future foraging choices. Predators, particularly birds with strong learning capacity, will avoid anything bearing the same red and black signature for months or even seasons. From an evolutionary standpoint, this relationship between predator memory and prey coloration is a dynamic equilibrium. Firebugs invest energy in producing these chemical compounds, and the payoff is long-term protection. Once predators in a region learn to avoid them, firebugs can move openly across tree trunks and sunlit stones with minimal risk. Their clustering behavior, which would otherwise make them extremely conspicuous to predators, becomes a bold display of collective safety. The irony is subtle but profound. The very trait that should expose them, gathering in the open, creating large concentrations of prey, works in their favor because of the aversive experience they deliver. The documentary lens then expands to reveal a broader ecological context. Firebugs often feed on seeds, particularly those from linden trees and mallow plants. Their piercing mouthparts are adapted to soften seed coats and draw out the nutritious contents within. The act of feeding leaves small marks on the seeds, but rarely affects the overall health of the plant. Their ecological footprint is surprisingly light, given their abundance. They participate in nutrient cycling by breaking down organic material that might otherwise remain locked within fallen seeds. In this way, firebugs play a subtle but meaningful role in the decomposition web, connecting plant reproduction to soil chemistry. Yet, when clustered in enormous numbers, they can create the perception of ecological dominance. To the casual observer, dozens of firebugs gathered on a single tree trunk may seem like a sign of infestation. But this congregation is less about feeding and more about thermoregulation, social structure, and the maintenance of seasonal rhythms. Cooler mornings slow insect metabolism dramatically, and firebugs combat this by warming themselves collectively. The process resembles miniature herd behavior, though not driven by complex communication. Instead, each insect follows simple biological cues, and the group's behavior emerges from these individual actions. As the sun climbs higher, scattering long shadows across the forest floor, the firebugs disperse from their warming clusters into smaller units. Some search for seeds, others mate. Still others explore cracks in bark or the edges of leaf litter. Though the insects operate independently, their shared coloration and chemical defenses continue to protect them. Even lone individuals benefit from the collective memory predators carry from earlier encounters. In the framework of a natural sting or pain index, firebugs occupy an intriguing position. They do not deliver sharp, piercing pain in the traditional sense. They possess no venomous apparatus, no barbed stinger, no painful bite capable of puncturing skin. Instead, Their power lies in irritation, a sensory discomfort that arises only when they are tasted or crushed. Their defense is a deterrent more than a threat, a boundary more than a weapon. In this way, firebugs embody a low to mid-tier level of biological defense, enough to discourage aggression, not enough to cause real harm. The chapter closes with a return to the visual signature of the species. A cluster of firebugs rests against the warm stone of a garden wall, their bodies glowing in the afternoon light. Their red wings form a living tapestry of warning, an inscription etched across generations of evolutionary pressure. They do not sting, they do not ambush, and they do not chase. Instead, they rely on the simplest and most elegant strategy. Teach your enemies once, and let memory do the rest. Morning sunlight falls across a weathered wooden beam, warming its grain and softening the shadows beneath the eaves. The air vibrates with a deep, resonant hum. Not the frantic buzz of honeybees, nor the sharp whine of wasps, but a slower, heavier sound. It is the acoustic signature of carpenter bees, those thick-bodied pollinators whose flight seems almost too heavy for the delicate wings that carry them. Their movements are confident and unhurried as they drift from flower to flower, dusting their fur with golden pollen before returning to the wood where their real engineering work begins. The camera closes in on a female carpenter bee as she lands on a wooden railing. Her body is compact and muscular, coated in dense, velvety hairs that catch the sunlight in tiny glints. She taps the surface of the wood with her antennae, reading moisture, density, and age through barely perceptible sensory cues. When she chooses a spot, she presses her jaws to the surface. The mandibles, strengthened for this specific purpose, begin carving a perfect circular entrance. Wood dust falls like fine powder as she drills deeper, creating a tunnel that will eventually branch into brood chambers. The craftsmanship is remarkable. Smooth galleries carved into solid wood by a creature no larger than a thumb. Over time, a single female can construct a network of tunnels several times longer than her own body, demonstrating a precision that rivals the early efforts of human carpenters. While this quiet engineering unfolds, another figure enters the scene. A bright, curious male hovering nearby. His behavior is markedly different. He patrols the wooden beam in wide, looping patterns, darting toward anything that enters his territory. To the untrained observer, he appears aggressive, even threatening. He confronts intruders with dramatic flight maneuvers, hovering inches from faces, wings roaring with the intensity of a much larger creature. Yet, for all his bluster, the male carpenter bee carries a secret that rarely aligns with his demeanor. He has no stinger. His entire defensive strategy is a performance, an evolutionary bluff designed to intimidate potential threats. It often succeeds. Humans retreat, birds hesitate, and even larger insects reconsider. Bluffing, in his world, is an effective survival tool, but the female is another story entirely. Where the male displays empty bravado, the female carries real consequence. Hidden beneath her soft exterior is a stinger, sturdy, sharply pointed, and connected to a venom gland capable of delivering a dose that surprises anyone expecting a gentle, harmless pollinator. Unlike honeybees, females can sting multiple times, for their stinger lacks the barbed structure that causes honeybees to perish after a single attack. The carpenter bee's stinger is smooth, functional, and efficient, allowing her to defend her nest persistently if needed. A slow-motion sequence reveals the mechanics of that sting. When the bee presses her abdomen forward, the stinger slides out in a controlled, deliberate motion. The venom she delivers shares broad similarities with that of honeybees, a mixture of melatonin, histamine-like compounds, and enzymes that trigger pain receptors almost instantly. When the stinger penetrates skin, the sensation blooms quickly from a sharp puncture into a radiating burn. The pain is not subtle, it is immediate, localized, and unmistakably intense. Swelling develops as the immune system responds, and for sensitive individuals, the reaction can escalate into extended inflammation, or, in rare cases, systemic allergic responses. This sting marks a new stage in the pain ladder the documentary explores. Up to this point, the viewer has moved through insects whose defenses relied on bitterness, mild irritation, or small nips. Discomfort that teaches predators, but seldom threatens them. Carpenter bees represent the first true threshold where the experience shifts from harmless annoyance to genuine, throbbing pain. The soft fur and gentle movements give no immediate hint of danger, and this contrast is part of what makes the sting so memorable. Something that looks like a flying plush toy suddenly becomes capable of delivering the kind of pain that forces predators, including humans, to reconsider their assumptions. To contextualize this sting within the ecological world, the camera shifts to a predator's perspective. A small mammal approaches a wooden structure, nose twitching as it investigates the buzzing activity. The male bee confronts it with aerial bravado, circling its head and darting close in bold displays. The mammal hesitates, but continues investigating until it encounters the female. She issues no dramatic warning. Her flight is steady, her response measured. When the threat intrudes too far into her nest entrance, she stings once. The reaction is immediate. The mammal recoils, shaking its paw or snout, retreating several paces before stopping to wipe at the painful spot. The sting is not delivered out of aggression, but out of necessity. The nest represents her future offspring, and the female bee defends it with a precision that leaves a strong impression on any creature that tests her boundaries. The documentary then explores the ecological significance of carpenter bees beyond their sting. While their wood-boring behavior is often misunderstood as destructive, the reality is more nuanced. Carpenter bees prefer dead or weathered wood, avoiding structural timber that is chemically treated or freshly milled. Their tunnels, though occasionally a nuisance to human-made structures, contribute to natural decomposition processes in forests. As old branches fall and logs decay, carpenter bees accelerate the breakdown of tough cellulose, creating cavities that later become refuges for other insects. In this way, their drilling serves as both a reproductive strategy and an ecological service. Their role as pollinators is equally impressive. Carpenter bees are strong enough to perform buzz pollination, a technique in which they vibrate their flight muscles at specific frequencies while gripping a flower. This vibration shakes loose pollen that many other pollinators cannot access. Certain plants rely heavily on this behavior, making carpenter bees indispensable partners in their reproductive cycles. Their large bodies carry substantial amounts of pollen, turning each foraging trip into a chain of ecological connections that ripple outward through entire plant communities. Yet despite their importance, carpenter bees inhabit a delicate balance with their surroundings. Their solitary lifestyle contrasts with the cooperative societies of honeybees or bumblebees. Each female constructs her own nest, provisions her own brood chambers, and defends her own territory. This solitary strategy influences their defensive behavior. With no colony to protect, they do not seek confrontation unless the threat is immediate and unavoidable. Their stings, though potent, remain tools of last resort rather than weapons for aggression. As the chapter draws to a close, the narrative returns to the pain ladder perspective. Carpenter bees occupy the first tier where pain becomes unequivocally real, sharp, burning, and lingering. The experience teaches predators that size and softness can be deceiving. A creature with the appearance of a gentle pollinator can deliver a sting with enough force to command respect. The roulette game of touching or teasing insects now carries consequences that extend beyond simple surprise. The camera pulls back one final time, revealing a carpenter bee perched at the entrance of her wooden tunnel. The setting sun casts long shadows along the grain, highlighting the precision of her handiwork. She vibrates her wings softly, sending a low hum into the cooling air. She is both architect and defender, gentle pollinator and capable warrior, a reminder that evolution often hides remarkable power within the most unassuming creatures. The morning begins with stillness, a quiet surface of sunlight laid across leaves and stones. Yet hidden in that stillness is a tension so fine that the camera must move slowly to detect it. The microscopic quiver of a creature whose size seems insignificant, but whose predatory precision rivals that of animals thousands of times larger. A jumping spider clings to the edge of a leaf, its 8 legs poised in a balanced, spring-loaded stance. Its body is small enough to disappear beneath a fingernail, but its presence dominates the frame because of its eyes, enormous, forward-facing, impossibly vivid. Two primary lenses occupy the center of its face like polished orbs, giving it a gaze that seems less insect-like and more analytical, almost vertebrate in its intensity. Around these dominant eyes, 6 smaller ones form a constellation of viewpoints, giving the spider a nearly 360-degree awareness of its world. These eyes are not passive windows. Jumping spiders have exceptional visual acuity, able to focus, track, and even perceive depth through movements of internal retinal structures. Their world is not the blurry mosaic experienced by most insects, but a sharply defined 3-dimensional arena. Every shift in light, every tremor of a leaf, every wing beat from a passing fly is mapped with extraordinary accuracy. When the spider turns its head, a rare behavior among arachnids, the motion is deliberate, mechanical, and filled with purpose. It is not reacting to vague stimuli. It is evaluating, judging, calculating. The camera tightens on the spider's body as it begins to stalk. Unlike many web-building relatives, jumping spiders are active hunters. They do not rely on silk traps to capture prey. Instead, they use silk as a lifeline, anchoring a thread behind them before beginning a pursuit. This silk tether acts as a safety line, preventing falls and stabilizing leaps. With each step, the spider adjusts its stance, aligning the orientation of its body with the trajectory of its target. The tension in its legs builds gradually, storing potential energy within the hydraulics of its body. Jumping spiders do not jump through muscular contraction alone. They rapidly increase internal blood pressure, extending their legs like biological pistons. This mechanism allows them to leap several times their body length with astonishing acceleration and precision. The target in this case is a small leafhopper resting on a stem. To the spider, the leafhopper is not simply a meal, but a puzzle waiting to be solved. It circles the plant structure with silent steps, orienting itself to achieve the perfect angle of attack. When the moment arrives, the spider freezes, a final evaluation of distance, wind, and movement. Then, in a fraction of a second, it launches. The flight is silent, controlled, almost too quick to perceive. The impact is not dramatic, but it is decisive. The spider lands squarely on the leafhopper's body, and in the same motion, deploys its fangs. Those fangs are more than tiny needles. They are hinged, capable of piercing through the exoskeleton of insects with efficiency that defies their size. Venom flows through them in controlled doses, a cocktail engineered by evolution to shut down the neuromuscular systems of small prey. The venom targets ion channels, disrupting the communication between nerve cells and muscular fibers. Signals misfire, muscles lock or collapse, and paralysis spreads through the leafhopper in moments. From the spider's perspective, the struggle ends almost immediately. But on a physiological level, the venom creates a storm of chemical interruption, shutting down entire biological systems with microscopic precision. To understand the potency of this venom, it is important to consider scale. For humans, a bite from a jumping spider is an almost trivial event. A brief pinprick may be followed by a mild burning itch, similar to the nip of a mosquito, but with slightly sharper onset. The localized sensation fades within minutes or hours, accompanied by no serious swelling or systemic reactions for most individuals. Yet this mildness is misleading when viewed through a human-centric lens. At the scale of insects, the same venom that barely irritates human skin becomes a devastating neurochemical assault. The potency is calibrated to the spider's prey, not to large mammals. If one were to shrink down to the size of a small beetle, the bite would be a catastrophic event, the equivalent of a venomous shock that overwhelms the body's entire communicative network. This relativity in pain and effect forms a critical narrative point in the pain ladder. The jumping spider does not deliver the burning, swelling, or deep puncture pain associated with larger stinging insects. Instead, it offers a specialized, targeted venom designed for efficiency rather than intimidation. The sting is not meant to ward off large threats the way a wasp's or bee's would. It is meant to neutralize prey quickly, preserving the nutritional value of the catch and minimizing the risk of injury to the spider. In this framework, the jumping spider occupies a rare space, not significant for human pain but extraordinary for its proportional impact on creatures its own size. The documentary then expands into the spider's broader ecological role. Jumping spiders help regulate insect populations, particularly those that multiply quickly and feed on vegetation. By targeting flies, leafhoppers, and small beetles, they act as subtle stabilizers in their environment. Their hunting precision ensures that only active, often abundant prey species are captured, preventing them from depleting rarer insects or disrupting fragile ecological balances. Their presence may seem incidental to the casual observer, but their cumulative influence shapes the dynamics of small arthropod communities in significant ways. The camera shifts to a scene where the spider encounters a predator. A small bird perches nearby, scanning the leaves for food. Jumping spiders, though bold hunters, are cautious prey. Their vision allows them to detect approaching threats from remarkable distances, triggering evasive responses that rely on unpredictable leaps rather than speed. When threatened, the spider may jump backwards, sideways, or downwards in erratic patterns that confuse predators. Its silk safety line becomes a vital tool here, allowing it to fall safely or swing beneath a leaf out of view. This combination of sharp vision and agile locomotion gives the spider an escape repertoire that keeps it alive despite its tiny size. The chapter returns to the human perspective briefly. Reports of jumping spider bites are scattered and infrequent, almost always the result of accidental compression or intense handling. The symptoms are familiar: a quick, sharp puncture followed by a lingering itch or mild burning that subsides without intervention. The pain is neither memorable nor medically significant, yet this gentle human experience belies the creature's true power in its own ecological world. The spider's venom, though unremarkable by human standards, represents a high-tier weapon for animals at its scale. Its ability to shut down prey so much larger than itself makes it a formidable predator in miniature. The closing imagery brings the viewer back to the leaf where the spider first stood. Now, after feeding, it grooms its fangs meticulously, using its pedipalps to clean away debris. Its eyes reflect the shifting light as the sun moves overhead. It is a creature defined by contrasts: tiny yet powerful, soft-looking yet lethal to its prey, harmless to humans yet capable of delivering one of the most efficient venom strikes in the arthropod world at its scale. The jumping spider embodies a unique lesson in perspective: that pain, power, and danger cannot be measured only in human terms. Shrink yourself down, and this little predator suddenly becomes one of the giants. The forest floor hums with purpose long before the viewer fully understands what is moving. At first, the scene seems filled with drifting green fragments, as if small pieces of leaves have decided to walk on their own. But as the camera sinks closer, the illusion fades, revealing the true architects of this procession. Lines of leafcutter ants marching in near-perfect formation, each carrying a piece of foliage many times its own body weight. Their movements are rhythmic and tireless, bowing slightly under the load but never breaking pace. These ants are more than harvesters. They are builders, farmers, and soldiers, woven into a society that functions with breathtaking complexity. The trail they carve through the undergrowth is not random. Leafcutter ants follow scent highways laid by their sisters, chemical markers that guide long, winding roads from nest to forage site. Their bodies glisten under the filtered light, and their mandibles, massive in proportion to their heads, clamp down on their leafy cargo with unwavering grip. These leaves will be taken underground, not for direct consumption, but to feed a fungus cultivated within the depths of their colony. This fungus is the true food source, maintained with a precision that rivals agricultural systems far larger and more sophisticated. Yet beneath this image of ecological collaboration, another world exists, one defined by conflict, defense, and chemical warfare. For leafcutter ants, survival depends not only on their agricultural prowess, but also on their ability to protect the colony from intruders. A single scouting vertebrate, a probing insect, or even a careless human hand can transform this peaceful procession into a battlefield. The ants' shift from workers to warriors is instantaneous. The moment a threat is detected, the trail fractures into swarms of defenders rushing to neutralize the danger. The camera captures the first wave. Small workers arrive quickly, using their sharp mandibles to anchor themselves to the intruder's skin. Their bite is small, almost negligible on its own, but they do not release once attached. Instead, they lock their jaws and twist their bodies, creating leverage that allows them to hold on while others attack. Soon, larger soldiers arrive. These ants possess the most formidable mandibles in the colony, scissor-like blades capable of slicing through plant fibers, insect exoskeletons, and thin layers of vertebrate skin. Their bites leave tiny lacerations, openings that become entry points for an altogether different form of pain. The real assault begins when ants curl their abdomens forward, exposing the tips of their gasters. Within these structures lies their most potent weapon: formic acid. In some species of leafcutters, the acid is injected directly into the wound through a stinger. In others, it is sprayed in fine, targeted droplets that seep into cuts created by earlier bites. The chemical reaction is immediate. Formic acid, with its extremely low pH, produces a burning sensation that spreads outward from the point of contact. In sufficient quantity, it can cause visible irritation, tissue damage, and blistering. For the ant colony, the acid serves as both offensive weapon and defensive barrier, deterring predators many times larger than a single worker. To understand the power of this chemical attack, the documentary shifts into a chemical perspective. Formic acid is one of the simplest organic acids, yet its simplicity belies its effectiveness. When it enters a wound, it disrupts the electrical charges across cell membranes, causing intense pain as nerve endings react to the change in pH. Muscles near the injection site may tighten involuntarily, and the skin often reddens as blood vessels dilate in response to chemical irritation. For small insects unlucky enough to be targeted by the swarm, the acid is not just painful but lethal. It denatures proteins, breaks down tissue, and overwhelms the prey's ability to maintain homeostasis. Even vertebrates feel its sting sharply, activating pain receptors with a force amplified by dozens or hundreds of simultaneous injections. The power of the leafcutter ant's attack cannot be understood by examining an individual. The true potency emerges only when the swarm is taken as a whole. One ant is a nuisance, a small bite, a momentary sting, but a colony is a physiological assault. As the camera pulls back, the viewer sees the cumulative effect. Dozens of ants gripping skin, each contributing to a growing mosaic of pain. The formic acid begins to pool in microabrasions, its burning sensation intensifying as more ants join the attack. Their movements are not chaotic. They coordinate through pheromones, responding to distress signals emitted by ants already in combat. The more intense the chemical alarm, the more rapidly reinforcements arrive. A predator's point of view reveals how overwhelming this response can be. A small mammal nosing near the leafcutter trail receives the first bite like an electric spark. It pulls back slightly, assessing the disturbance, but the ants do not retreat. They swarm upward, piercing soft skin around the feet, legs, and muzzle. The mammal begins to shake, scrape, or bite at the attackers, but each action spreads the ants more widely across its fur. This multiplying effect is part of the colony's defensive strength. A single point of contact becomes several, then dozens, then an explosion of burning pain that forces the predator to flee. The ants win not through size or venom potency, but through relentless, chemically coordinated teamwork. The documentary shifts underground, into the chambered architecture of a leafcutter colony. Here, the fungus gardens grow in carefully maintained humidity, tended by workers who prune, feed, and fertilize the fungal matrix. The health of the colony depends on this delicate symbiosis. Should an invader breach the nest, the stakes escalate dramatically. Soldiers positioned near the entrances respond first, blocking tunnels with their broad heads. Behind them, layers of smaller ants prepare to swarm any intruder that passes the initial blockade. A vertebrate intruding into this space would experience a concentrated version of the above-ground assault. Dozens of bites in seconds, followed by acid injections that turn the threat into a burning, retreating body. In the pain ladder, leafcutter ants represent a significant escalation. Unlike earlier entries, which delivered mild bites, defensive toxins, or small punctures, leafcutters combine mechanical damage with chemical torture. The pain is not a single sharp sensation, but a spreading, compounding burn that worsens as more ants join the attack. While their formic acid does not reach the debilitating levels of larger stinging insects, its cumulative effect can become overwhelming. This is especially true for those who stumble into the middle of a foraging trail or disturb a nest entrance. The sensation has been described as stepping into a patch of living acid, a swarm of needles that continue to burn long after the ants have fallen away. The closing shot returns to the forest floor, where leafcutter ants resume their procession as if nothing had happened. Their mandibles grip fresh leaves, their bodies move in perfect cadence, and the path they carve leads back to the thriving fungal gardens below. They are farmers and fighters, architects and warriors, their existence defined by the balance of creation and defense. For creatures so small, their collective power is astonishing, reminding the viewer that in nature, pain is often a matter of numbers, chemistry, and coordination. The meadow, washed in late summer sunlight, seems calm from a distance. Golden grasses sway, bees drift lazily between flowers, and the gentle hum of insects settles into a predictable rhythm. Yet the illusion of calm shifts the moment the camera fixes on a thin, yellow-striped body slicing through the air with a speed and precision unmatched by most flying insects. A wasp, lean, aerodynamic, and impossibly alert, hovers for a breathless instant before landing on a flower's stem. Its movements are sharp rather than graceful, purposeful rather than gentle. There is an edge to its presence, a tension that suggests this animal did not evolve for peace. The wasp's body is a mechanical masterpiece of narrow waists, elongated limbs, and translucent wings that flicker like blades in the sun. The camera glides close enough to reveal the smooth, polished surface of its exoskeleton. Unlike the soft fuzz of a bee or the gentle rotundity of a hoverfly, the wasp is built for speed, maneuverability, and combat. Its exoskeleton refracts light in hard, glossy angles. The legs, long and spindly, hang beneath it in flight, ready to grasp, pull, or brace. The antennae twitch continuously, sampling odors and faint chemical cues in the air with the precision of a surveyor reading the earth. This insect is not simply foraging, it is patrolling. The camera shifts to a slow-motion angle as the wasp hovers above a fallen caterpillar. It lands silently, curling its abdomen slightly downward. The stinger remains hidden, tucked inside a sheath at the tip of the abdomen. Unlike bees, which possess barbed stingers that lodge into thick mammalian skin, wasps carry smooth, retractable stingers designed for repeated use. The mechanism resembles a biological hypodermic needle, sleek, efficient, and engineered to puncture with minimal resistance. It slides outward when muscles in the abdomen contract, thrusting the stinger forward with startling speed. Here, the documentary pauses the frame. The viewer watches the stinger extend in slow motion, a tiny spear that glints in the light before it strikes with surgical precision. The sting lands. The abdomen pumps once, then again, injecting venom deep into the caterpillar's tissues. This venom is not a single chemical, but a complex blend of peptides, enzymes, and signaling molecules honed over evolutionary time to disable, deter, or inflame depending on the species and situation. The camera shifts into a microscopic cross-section, peeling back the layers of biology to reveal what happens when wasp venom meets flesh. The first wave of activity comes from peptides designed to punch holes in cell membranes, compromising their integrity. These pores disrupt the delicate balance of ions within the cell, causing them to rupture or malfunction. Next come enzymes that target cell walls and extracellular structures. Some break down connective tissue, allowing venom to spread more easily. Others trigger alarm responses within the body, prompting immune cells to rush toward the site of injection. Histamine release follows, widening blood vessels and intensifying the sensation of heat and swelling. At the sensory level, pain receptors begin firing rapidly. The sting feels sharp at first, a needle puncture sensation, followed by an expanding burn that radiates outward in waves. Human skin reacts with increasing inflammation as the venom disperses, creating a localized region of heat, redness, and swelling. For most people, the pain peaks quickly, reaching its characteristic high-voltage jolt before settling into a throbbing, heated soreness that can linger for minutes or hours. But for some, the reaction is far more dramatic. The venom's components can trigger systemic immune responses, including widespread itching, hives, or breathing difficulty. Though rare, full-body allergic reactions mark the wasp as one of the few insects whose sting can become a true medical emergency. It is this combination of intense localized pain and the potential for dangerous systemic reaction that elevates the wasp sting into the upper tiers of human experience. While the documentary explores this, it avoids demonizing the insect. Wasps do not sting without reason. Their aggression is usually defensive rather than predatory, and in many species, the sting serves as a tool for subduing prey rather than harming larger animals. Some wasps hunt caterpillars to feed their larvae. Others paralyze spiders or beetles before dragging them into burrows. Still others use their stingers to defend nests filled with vulnerable offspring. The sting, with all of its intense physiology, is a functional extension of their ecological role. To illustrate this, the documentary shifts to a nest scene beneath a shaded overhang. The structure, made from chewed wood mixed with saliva, resembles a paper lantern filled with hexagonal cells. Workers move across its surface. Their flight paths are tight, controlled, and hyper-aware of intrusion. When a large beetle attempts to climb the support beam, the workers react instantly. One wasp lands on the beetle's back, delivering a sting directly into the soft membrane between its plates. Another follows, then another. The beetle struggles briefly before succumbing to paralysis, its legs stiffening as venom courses through its body. The wasps drag it away from the nest, removing the threat with precise efficiency. In this close-quarter defense, the viewer witnesses the sting's dual nature, a paralyzing agent for prey and a punishment for predators. Returning to the meadow, the camera focuses on a human hand brushing too close to a wasp, hidden among blossoms. The wasp lifts, hovers, and in a blink, it strikes. The sensation is familiar to those who have experienced it. A flash of heat and puncture, followed by a rapid spread of pain that feels disproportionate to the insect's size. This is the moment where the pain ladder takes a decisive leap. Everything before it, the tiny nip of a ladybug, the dissolving bite of a larval lacewing, the burning swarm of leafcutter ants, serves as prelude. The wasp sting becomes the baseline unit of serious pain, the standard against which all higher tiers will be measured. It is the first entry in the lineup that truly compels a full-body reaction, flinching, cursing, shaking the hand instinctively as the pain blooms. Yet the documentary does not linger only on suffering. It zooms out to depict the ecological necessity of the wasp. Without these insects, caterpillar populations would explode, crops would suffer, and countless ecosystems would drift into imbalance. Wasps remove vast numbers of herbivorous insects from the environment every day. They participate in pollination, scavenging, nutrient recycling, and even seed dispersal in certain habitats. The sting, powerful as it is, remains a secondary function compared to their role in maintaining ecological order. As the chapter winds toward its conclusion, the camera settles on a wasp perched on a fence post, grooming its antennae with delicate forelegs. It is not dangerous in this moment. It is a creature going about its evolutionary routines, as vital to the world as any bee, bird, or butterfly. Yet the memory of its sting lingers in the imaginative mind, not because it is malicious, but because it represents the first genuine encounter with insect pain that feels unmistakably severe. In the structured ascent of this documentary, the wasp is the threshold, the moment the viewer understands that pain in the insect world is not theoretical or miniature. It is immediate, sharp, and deeply persuasive, a high-voltage needle that commands respect from anything large enough to fear it. In the still heat of a tropical afternoon, sunlight filters through the canopy like molten glass, breaking into long golden shafts that fall across the forest understory. Suspended between trunks and branches, catching the light with improbable brilliance, is one of the most imposing structures in the arthropod world, the web of the golden silk orb-weaver. It stretches wider than an outstretched human arm, its threads gleaming with a metallic sheen. This shimmer is not an illusion. The silk itself carries a natural golden hue, a pigment that intensifies when struck by certain wavelengths of sunlight. To the human eye, it looks almost decorative, like strands of spun metal drifting in the breeze. To the insects that fly through this forest, however, it is an invisible trap waiting to collapse around them with brutal efficiency. The camera hovers inches above the web, showing its symmetry, a radial lattice of immaculate geometry. Each strand is tuned to a specific tension. The outer threads remain rigid, supporting the frame, while the inner spirals hold just enough elasticity to ensnare anything that collides with them. The sticky coating on these strands is engineered by evolution to latch onto scales, hairs, and exoskeletons, forming temporary bonds that resist force and amplify the prey's struggle. The orb-weaver has positioned her web with precision. It occupies a flight corridor between shrubs, angled to catch insects moving with the late-day breeze. Here, biology meets architecture on a miniature scale. A buzzing drone enters the frame, a stiff-winged beetle tumbling as it misjudges its flight path. It strikes the web with a dull snap, the impact reverberating along the radial lines. Instantly, the web responds, flexing inward and then recoiling, dissipating force across the frame like a living trampoline. The beetle's momentum reverses, pulling it deeper into the spiral. Its legs scramble, claws snagging, but finding no purchase on the sticky strands. Every movement only entangles it further, a cruel feedback loop engineered to exploit panic. Within seconds, vibrations begin radiating from the center of the web, where the orb-weaver lies waiting. The spider emerges from her retreat, long-legged, shimmering, and deliberate. Her body is a mosaic of golds, browns, and muted reds, the colors shifting with each angle of the light. Golden silk orb-weavers are large spiders, among the biggest web builders in the world. Their leg span can rival the width of an adult human's hand, and their bodies carry a weight and presence rare among orb-weaving spiders. Despite this, she moves with eerie lightness across her own silk, using specialized claws at the tips of her legs to avoid the sticky lines that ensnare other animals. Her approach is not rushed. She reads her web the way a musician reads an instrument, interpreting vibration, frequency, and rhythm with exquisite precision. As she reaches the struggling beetle, the camera focuses on her fangs. They are long, curved, and strong enough to pierce the armor-like exoskeleton of beetles, grasshoppers, and other hard-bodied prey. But the mechanical puncture is only the first step. What makes the orb-weaver a high-tier predator is the venom delivered through those fangs, a complex mixture of neurotoxins built to override a nervous system within moments. When she bites, the prey's physiology is hijacked at the ion channel level. Sodium and calcium channels, essential for transmitting nerve impulses to muscles, begin misfiring. The beetle's legs twitch erratically, then seize in rigid contraction. Those spasms quickly collapse into limp paralysis as communication between nerves and muscles deteriorates. To the viewer, the transformation is chilling. The beetle's frantic kicking becomes rhythmic trembling, then silence. The orb-weaver releases her grip and steps back. The venom will continue to work, ensuring the prey remains immobile while its internal tissues soften for consumption. The attack is efficient, minimizing risk to the spider. Hard-bodied insects can deliver dangerous counterattacks. Sharp legs and jaws can injure or kill a spider if the struggle lasts too long. Paralysis, therefore, is not merely predatory convenience. It is survival strategy. Within minutes, the spider begins wrapping the beetle. She turns it with her legs, spinning silk from her spinnerets in tight, controlled loops. The wrapping serves multiple purposes: immobilization, preservation, and protection from scavengers. The silk constrains any last residual muscle twitches, while the venom continues its silent work, breaking down internal tissues into digestible slurry. The spider may feed immediately or store the wrapped prey for later, hanging it like a grotesque ornament within the web's architecture. For humans, an encounter with a golden silk orb-weaver is usually far less dramatic. Their venom is not designed for large vertebrates. A bite can happen during accidental handling or unexpected contact with the web, but the experience is typically limited to localized effects: burning, redness, swelling, and a level of pain comparable to a wasp sting, though often less intense. What humans feel is the echo of what smaller creatures experience, the same venom scaled up to bodies far too large for immediate paralysis. The neurotoxic components do cause discomfort, but only at the puncture site. Systemic effects are rare and usually mild. However, the pain ladder considers not only the venom, but the composite experience of the spider's attack. To imagine what the beetle feels, assuming insect physiology translated cleanly into human pain perception, one must scale down both perspective and vulnerability. Instead of a single sting, imagine a bite that instantly destabilizes the nervous system. Muscles first seize, then lose coordination. Signals fire chaotically. A strange mix of tingling, heat, and numbness radiates through the body. And as this storm takes hold, the victim feels silk binding their limbs, restricting motion further with every breath. Fear compounds physiology. The prey is alive, aware, and immobile. In this light, the orb-weaver's sting ranks far higher for animals its own size than the human experience suggests. Its venom is not built for deterrence but for rapid neutralization. It is a system-level takedown, engineered to stop prey from escaping or fighting back. The pain, if nerves fire normally during the early phase, would be an intense neural overload, a sensory explosion caused by ion channel disruption. The paralysis that follows may not technically be pain in the human sense, but it is a state of catastrophic physiological failure. The documentary then explores the spider's ecological role. Golden silk orb-weavers are apex micro-predators in their niche. Their webs filter the air of flying insects, shaping insect population dynamics at local scales. They capture pest species, pollinators, and even small vertebrates on rare occasions. Birds, bats, and reptiles may become entangled if they strike the web at high speed, though these incidents are uncommon. The spider's ability to influence the community of flying insects around her is significant. Her web placement, often across open forest corridors, forces insects to adapt flight patterns or suffer the consequences. Her survival depends on thermoregulation as well. The sun-warmed silk provides heat during cooler hours, helping accelerate the spider's metabolic processes. Conversely, when temperatures rise, she retreats to shaded areas of the web to avoid overheating. The web becomes more than a trap. It is an environmental interface that amplifies her sensory world, regulates her body, and extends her reach. As evening falls, the golden sheen fades into shadow, but the orb-weaver remains patient, suspended at the web's center like a living sentinel. Her presence is calm, almost regal. Yet behind that stillness lies one of arthropod biology's most effective combinations: architectural mastery, neurotoxic precision, and the chilling finality of immobilization. In the escalating scale of the pain ladder, the orb-weaver embodies the moment when venom and physical entrapment merge, where pain is no longer just a sting but a neurological collapse, accompanied by the silent terror of being wrapped alive. Dawn lifts slowly across a meadow, brushing the tips of tall grasses with a pale amber glow. The air is still cool, layered with the faint scent of dew warming on vegetation. At first glance, nothing appears unusual. The field is a woven tapestry of blades and stems, trembling gently as insects begin their morning routines. Yet hidden within this seemingly disordered lattice is a structure of deliberate geometry, a web stretched vertically between grass stalks, positioned at exactly the height where the traffic of the meadow is heaviest. Only when the camera glides low, angling the sunlight through the strands, does the full design reveal itself. An orb of silk, marked with a bold white zigzag ribbon running down its center like a torn lightning bolt. This signature, known as a stabilimentum, belongs to one of the grassland's most specialized predators, the wasp spider. Named for the yellow, black, and white banding on her abdomen, the wasp spider carries the bold coloration of danger even before she moves. Her legs, long and slender, grip the web with calculated tension. She positions herself head down, the optimal orientation for intercepting prey that bursts upward from the grass. Her body remains perfectly still, but beneath that stillness is an elastic readiness, a constant calculation of vibration, air pressure, and the subtle tremors traveling through her silk. She is a landmine suspended in the open, waiting not for her prey to seek her out, but to stumble blindly into her trap. The ecosystem around her is bustling. Grasshoppers leap in sporadic arcs, crickets scrape their calls from hidden chambers, and beetles clamber up stems in search of pollen. The meadow's warm season is short, and its inhabitants surge through their routines with little caution. This is what the wasp spider relies on. Unlike the golden silk orb-weaver who dominates open corridors, the wasp spider positions herself in dense vegetation, where sudden motion is common and visibility is low. Her web's zigzag stabilimentum may reflect ultraviolet light, drawing insects toward it, or it may strengthen the structure for larger impacts. Either way, it stands out starkly, a visual anomaly with implications that scientists still debate. A grasshopper enters the frame, its trajectory erratic and frantic as it bounces from stalk to stalk. It leaps again and lands squarely in the center of the web. The impact is explosive. The web flexes deeply under the grasshopper's weight, the stabilimentum quivering like a plucked string. Within a fraction of a second, the spider reacts. She rushes in with startling speed, guided not by sight, but by the pattern of vibrations radiating through the threads. She makes contact with the grasshopper before it can orient itself. Her front legs snap around the prey, claws and bristles anchoring her grip. The grasshopper thrashes, powerful hind legs kicking in blind attempts to escape, but each movement only tangles it further in the sticky spiral. Then the spider strikes. Her fangs, small but sharply pointed, pierce the jointed membrane between the grasshopper's plates. Venom surges inward, delivered in a controlled dose. This venom is a carefully engineered blend of neurotoxins and metabolic disruptors designed to shut down the prey's nervous system with ruthless efficiency. The toxins target ion channels in the grasshopper's neurons, preventing electrical signals from reaching the muscles. Within seconds, the grasshopper's movements lose coordination. Its powerful hind legs twitch erratically, then stiffen, then fall limp as paralysis spreads through its body. From the spider's perspective, speed is critical. A grasshopper's kick can be powerful enough to injure or even kill a small spider. By delivering fast-acting venom, she reduces the risk of injury and ensures the prey cannot escape. As soon as the paralysis takes hold, she releases the grasshopper and begins spinning, a rapid circling dance that coats the helpless prey in silk. The silk is not just a binding material, it is a strategy for preservation. Encased prey remain fresh longer, protected from microbial invasion and scavengers, allowing the spider to feed at her own pace. The camera closes in on the grasshopper's body as the paralysis spreads. Its antennae vibrate, tiny signals misfiring across a nervous system in collapse. Its legs tremble, then freeze. For humans, this process would be imperceptible or even gentle. The venom of a wasp spider is not potent enough to cause systemic collapse in large vertebrates, but at the scale of insects, the bite is catastrophic. The venom hijacks the neuromuscular system with terrifying speed, essentially causing a controlled shutdown of bodily function while the animal remains alive for the initial phases. Pain, in a human sense, may not translate directly into insect physiology, but the biological distress is profound. Muscles contract involuntarily, reflex pathways fail. Internal tissues, softened by enzymatic action, begin to break down for digestion. As the spider finishes wrapping her prey, she returns to the center of her web, where she hangs quietly, her legs splayed in a delicate star formation. She waits for another disturbance, another tremor of grass, another unsuspecting journey intersecting her silk. The meadow returns to its earlier rhythm, but now the viewer recognizes the hidden violence stitched between its grasses. The documentary then shifts to ecological context. Wasp spiders thrive in grasslands, meadows, and fields that offer structural support for their vertical webs. Their presence can shape insect population dynamics in subtle ways. Grasshoppers, often significant herbivores in open habitats, are among their primary prey. By capturing these powerful insects, wasp spiders indirectly influence plant health, reducing grazing pressure on grasses and flowers. They also feed on crickets, moths, bees, and beetles, essentially any insect large enough to strike the web with force but small enough to subdue. The web itself is a marvel of specialization. Unlike horizontal webs used to catch flying insects descending from above, the wasp spider's vertical traps intercept sideways motion, the unpredictable leaps and flights of meadow insects. The zigzag stabilimentum may serve multiple purposes. strengthening the web, acting as camouflage, reflecting ultraviolet light to lure prey, or warning larger animals to avoid breaking the web. Studies suggest its visibility may reduce accidental destruction by birds, ensuring the spider does not need to rebuild her intricate structure daily. The chapter then considers the wasp spider's place on the pain ladder. Compared to the golden silk orb-weaver, the venom is similar in function: rapid paralysis, neuromuscular suppression, and tissue softening. But the framing differs dramatically. Where the orb-weaver traps prey in broad sunlit corridors, the wasp spider is a hidden hazard. Her web is invisible until the moment it collides with an unsuspecting body. The pain, if scaled to human perception, comes not just from venom, but from surprise. Humans describe spider bites generally as a pinprick, followed by mild burning. But from the prey's perspective, this is a landmine detonation of nerve activity, a sudden blackout that begins the moment the fangs penetrate. The roulette angle becomes clear. You do not walk into a wasp spider, you fall into one. The prey's own movement seals its fate. A jump, a beat of wings, a stumble between grass stems, any of these can place an animal within the web's reach. The spider does not chase or lure, she waits, poised at the center of her geometric trap, letting the randomness of the meadow deliver her victims. It is a predatory strategy built on patience and precision, relying on the chaotic movement of the ecosystem to bring prey to her doorstep. As the sun lowers, the web glows once more, the golden zigzag bright against the cooler tones of evening. The spider remains motionless, her silhouette sharp against the twilight. She is an ambush artist, a hunter who lets gravity, wind, and carelessness do the work. In the ascending architecture of this documentary's pain ladder, the wasp spider marks another high tier. Not because she inflicts more suffering than larger predators, but because she embodies a uniquely terrifying possibility. Pain delivered without warning, without invitation, and without escape. Night in the jungle arrives not as a sudden curtain, but as a slow drowning of color. Greens collapse into shadow, branches fade into silhouettes, and the air thickens with humidity that clings to skin and leaf alike. Beneath this darkness, another world wakes. Crickets pulse their metallic rhythms, beetles clatter through the litter, and across the forest floor, almost invisible until the narrator's light touches it, a scorpion emerges, slow, patient, and armored like a relic carved from obsidian. Under ultraviolet illumination, its body glows with an eerie blue-green radiance, the product of fluorescent compounds embedded in its exoskeleton. It is a beacon in a world normally hidden from human eyes, but within its own ecosystem, it is a ghost, silent, powerful, and feared by anything that moves at its scale. The black scorpion moves with a deliberate confidence, each step placed with mechanical precision. Its pedipalps, thick, crushing pincers, reach ahead of the body like exploratory sensors. These claws alone can subdue many small creatures, cracking exoskeletons and pinning soft-bodied prey. But they're not the scorpion's true weapon. That honor belongs to the curved tail arched above its back, jointed like a chain of armored beads, ending in a sting that gleams with a droplet suspended at its tip. The droplet is not moisture from the night air. It is venom, held in place by tension alone, shimmering like a warning. The camera shifts to a low angle, following the scorpion as it glides between fallen leaves. This species, larger and more robust than many of its relatives, carries the evolutionary hardware to deliver one of the most painful stings in the arthropod world. Yet it does not strike without purpose. Scorpions exhibit dosage control, a remarkable ability to modulate how much venom they inject based on the context of the threat. A warning sting may involve only a mechanical puncture or the tiniest dose of venom, enough to deter without expending valuable biochemical resources. A full defensive or predatory sting, however, can deliver a payload powerful enough to disrupt the neuromuscular systems of vertebrates far larger than the scorpion itself. When prey crosses its path, a wandering cricket, a small gecko, or a rival arthropod, the scorpion accelerates in a sudden burst of kinetic energy. The pincers snap shut with crushing force. If the struggle persists, the tail descends in a blur, puncturing the prey's body with astonishing speed. The venom enters in a rapid pulse, beginning its biochemical war not by dissolving tissue, but by dismantling the electrical system that governs motion, reflex, and respiration. The venom of the black scorpion is a cocktail of toxins evolved to sabotage ion channels, tiny gateways in nerve and muscle cells that control the movement of sodium and potassium. By jamming these channels open or closed, the venom disrupts the flow of electrical impulses. Muscles seize or collapse. Reflex arcs fire involuntarily. Sensory neurons send erratic waves of burning, tingling, and sharp pain. In small animals, the result can be catastrophic. Coordinated movement fails, breathing becomes erratic, and the prey succumbs to paralysis or respiratory failure. The camera moves inward, illustrating this on a cellular level. Ion channels flick open and shut in ordinary circumstances, creating precise electrical timelines across neurons. But once the venom binds to them, they misfire wildly. Messages that should travel smoothly through the nervous system arrive out of sequence or not at all. It is as if the body's internal circuitry has been scrambled. The devastation is not immediate tissue decay, it is electrical chaos. For prey animals, the collapse is fast. For vertebrates, especially small ones, the symptoms intensify until coordination vanishes completely. Humans, too, feel this venom deeply. The sting itself begins with a brutal puncture, comparable to being pierced with a heated needle. Almost instantly, the pain blooms from the site, expanding into a burning radius that refuses to stay contained. The area swells, stiffens, and throbs in relentless waves. The sensation is sharp and electrical, radiating outward with each heartbeat. Some describe it as a line of fire traveling along the limb. Others liken it to an electric shock that refuses to fade. Within minutes, systemic symptoms may appear: sweating, shaking, tingling in the extremities, or nausea as the nervous system struggles to compensate for the sudden influx of toxins. For many healthy adults, the sting is excruciating but survivable. For children, the elderly, or those with compromised physiology, some species of black scorpions pose genuine medical danger. Their venom can trigger full-body reactions: muscle spasms, difficulty breathing, an accelerated heart rate, and in rare cases, potentially life-threatening complications. While fatalities are uncommon with prompt treatment, the intensity of the sting alone secures the black scorpion's place at the pinnacle of the pain index. It is not the most lethal scorpion, nor the most venomous by milligram potency, but in terms of raw sensory assault, it stands as a final test in this documentary's Venom Roulette. Yet even here, the narrative seeks deeper ecological grounding. The scorpion is not an aggressor by choice. It avoids confrontation with larger animals, relying on camouflage and stillness to survive. Its glow under ultraviolet light is not visible to most prey, nor does it serve as a threat signal in ordinary darkness. Instead, scientists suspect the fluorescence may help scorpions detect and interpret low-light conditions or protect them from sunlight. Others propose it may function as a kind of visual shield, scattering ultraviolet wavelengths that could damage tissues. The purpose remains partly mysterious, adding to the aura of strangeness around these ancient arthropods. The black scorpion's nocturnal lifestyle is governed by thermoregulation as much as by predation. Daylight temperatures in many habitats would overheat its body and dehydrate its tissues. By hunting at night, it avoids thermal stress while exploiting prey animals that rely on darkness for concealment. Its sensory hairs detect minute vibrations through the substrate, allowing it to sense approaching movement even in complete darkness. Its pectines, comb-like sensory organs on the underside of the abdomen, sweep the ground, tasting chemical signatures from the soil and guiding the scorpion toward potential prey or mates. Every part of its body is a sensory instrument, refined over millions of years. The documentary lingers on a scorpion waiting in ambush. Its body remains still, but the tail moves in subtle arcs, tasting the air. A small rodent approaches, whiskers twitching. The scorpion senses the vibrations first, then the shifting air current. The rodent digs for a seed, unaware of the silent danger nearby. The scorpion could strike, its venom capable of staggering such a creature, but it does not. Scorpions rarely attack prey larger than they need. Instead, it retreats slowly, conserving energy, preserving venom, and avoiding unnecessary confrontation. This restraint is part of what makes its sting so formidable when it finally deploys. It is not a reckless weapon, but a controlled, calculated last line of defense. The chapter concludes with the scorpion raising its tail high, a silhouette against the moonlit ground. Its stinger glistens with the bead of venom that could deliver agony far beyond the experiences described in earlier chapters. It is the apex of this pain journey, the final boss, the creature whose sting represents the culmination of evolutionary weaponry in the arthropod world. Everything before it, the burning bites, the acid sprays, the paralysis-inducing venoms, feels like training for this moment. The black scorpion stands alone at the top of the venom roulette wheel, its sting a reminder that in the world of small predators, power is not measured by size, but by the precision and potency of the chemical storm they wield.